rookie time, the money-making time right here, Matt Harmon. Who's the first rookie quarterback receiver that you want to check it? We touched on Caleb and Jaden a little bit so far, but any other guys that you want to talk about to start this off?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to point out what I mentioned in passing earlier, that Odunze I think looks really good on especially in week one from a route running perspective. I thought he settled into zone coverage extremely well. I just think Caleb has no time to operate back there, which is tough. And it's definitely on my radar how frustrated DJ Moore looked in week two, only because he really went to bat for keeping Justin Fields. And I'm not trying to cause drama here about
No.
About he doesn't like facts. Caleb or anything like that. But yeah, he went to bat for Justin Fields, and you just got to wonder, a guy that was so productive last year, because and I know he just got paid and the whole thing, but these guys are judged off their numbers, they're judged off production, and people are going to come out of this year being like, oh, DJ Moore had a down season. I guess I'll just never understand. I'll go to my grave wondering why nobody wants to give the ball to DJ Moore in space when I think he almost always makes the first defender miss. But he's getting these vertical routes and back shoulder stuff that Caleb's just not ready for. I almost think they kind of need to involve Rome more in these intermediate routes against zone coverage. Definitely, I think he's not healthy right now. You could see that in week two, where especially downfield routes against zone, particularly, I think he got off the line of scrimmage well. His work against press still impresses me, but when he's healthier, I think he needs to be more involved. He's one I think is worth pointing out on.
Yeah, he's getting stuck in third and fourth gear. He can't hit that last little burst out. I noticed it early on. He had he got a catch on it. Route's smooth. He's a smooth route runner for a big guy. But he kind of just didn't burst out of the route. It was kind of a ooze out. And I was like, ooh, that's different. That's not you. I've seen you in college. That I know what this is. And
especially in week one, I thought he looked great in week one against the Titans.
And he was banged up in the summer, and we knew this. And but yeah, no, I'm super high on him. I love Rome. He's one of my favorite college receivers I've watched in recent years, just because he does all the dirty work stuff. He had power slot potential, which I always love. No, Rome Odunze is a good one. We talked about Malik Nabers a little bit earlier as well. Had some really nice moments. I'll talk about Malik Nabers' LSU teammate, Brian Thomas Jr., who the receiver for the Jags, who has come out of the gate strong. I thought he might take some time, but he already is a little cleaner than I was expecting. It turns out when you're a really good athlete and you like football, you can really work on these things. But he might be one of the fastest players in the league, period, at 6'4", 210 pounds. His adjustment on that deep ball to Trevor was so good. Just not only burned the guy, but it just looked like a Willie Mays catch. He's not only winning deep, coming down with it. That's a big, big thing. Route running's already looking cleaner. He's already adding stuff, and he just needs to keep adding. It's not exceptional or anything, but he looks great. He looks how I was hoping to see him at the end of this year, and this is week two. Rest of the Jags offense, not so much, but Brian Thomas Jr. has definitely been a standout guy where it's like, oh, this guy's a real deal one. Not now, but down the road. He has a path building to that where it looks very legitimate.
I think Trevor Lawrence leads all quarterbacks in deep throw percentage this year, and you can really tell that's what they wanted to do in getting Gabe Davis, which, okay, Gabe Davis, but and then especially Brian Thomas Jr., they wanted two guys, a couple of big receivers on the outside to run the ball well, do play action, and rip these, especially seam routes with these players. I love Brian Thomas Jr. running those deeper routes down the middle of the field. I agree with you. He's looked great. Same thing, exceeded my expectations. Thought he'd be a player in the long term, but he's been just a dude right off the bat. I think they got to get him more and more and more involved. More trust with him and Trevor is a good thing. So, I don't have a lot of faith in. I'm with you. I don't have a lot of faith in Jacksonville at all at this point. I think I sent you the clip of Doug Peterson, in a press conference when they were talking about Trevor Bank Field, and he's like, "I liked it when it's Everbank Field," and just deadpan. It's something's up there.
Yeah, I know. He hates him for some reason. It's the weirdest thing. Someone tweeted that, right? When your head coach is your quarterback's biggest hater.
Is your franchise quarterback's number one hater? Yes, that is very weird. But yeah, I do love what I've seen out of Brian Thomas. I'll throw out Xavier Worthy here in sort of I know you and I kind of had some of the same hesitations on Worthy. I'm not trying to hyper focus on one play, but when Marquise Brown went out, the common sort of thought was, oh, who cares? Xavier Worthy showed in week one, he's ready to rock. 2 touchdowns in week one. You got to remember, one touchdown was on a rushing play, which classic Andy Reid vintage stuff there. He had to be flying high that
So
was
excited for that.
Xavier Worthy's first touchdown. And then the second came on definitely a coverage bust from the Ravens. I think when you have to watch this obviously on film to see and appreciate it, but he is creating space for this offense. That alone is a value add. And there's a reason that Rashee Rice is just gobbling up. And Rashee Rice had a really nice deeper catch in this last game too, which is nice to see. That's a little bit of a development. But for his archetype of receiver, he's going to eat with this space underneath. I think we do kind of have to ask some questions about Xavier Worthy from like an outside against press man coverage standpoint. Look, I get it. That's not going to be the strength of his game, but they tried to line him up against Cam Taylor-Britt, who talked crap all week long, and get him against press coverage on a go route. And I mean, he just got smoked on that. He basically is getting pushed out of the boundary, and then Cam Taylor-Britt shouted to him, makes, one of the best interceptions you'll ever see. But that was a microcosm of, I think, like, that's not the usage for Xavier Worthy. He's going to stretch the field horizontally. He's going to stretch the field vertically, and you're going to have to kind of manufacture ways to get him space on these deeper routes for himself. I do think there's just going to be something missing from this Chiefs offense once again. And like, I don't know that Xavier Worthy is going to be the one to solve that, as much as I like him as a player.
Yeah, I think some people are misconstrued that. Even when we gave the first fantasy filmer and we gave our Thursday night football touts for props, and we were both kind of came with that with Rashee Rice. It was just like, yeah, Worthy's going to open up space. And it's like, yeah, that's working great. My hesitation with Worthy, especially in this offense, was because he's better off ball, moving around because of his size, his lack of size, is that's how they use Kelsey too. And that's also kind of how they use Rice sometimes too.
Yes. 100%.
And so it's like only one of these guys gets to do that. And so, okay, sometimes Worthy's going to have to be outside versus press. And I'm not comfortable with that with a 165-pound guy doing that. And that's what we saw in that interception is you can't hit your 4.2 if you can't even get off the line. Like that's just hard. Like the 160 showed up more than the 4.2. He hasn't broken 20 miles an hour yet, by the way. Marvin Harrison Jr. has. But it's
I didn't know I didn't know you could do that. Even though we have proof of it from previous season.
Maybe it's because he played at a small school with no production. Maybe under
the radar guy too. Little, not a household name,
small recruit. Yeah. No one had eyes on him ever. But that's just that interception was kind of the one though, like you said, it was just a little sample size or a snapshot of like kind of some hesitations with it where they have Juju in there now to be the size zone beater, but still like, all right, God, you guys need another guy still. All right. Well, speaking of Marvin Harrison Jr., those two touchdowns were fun. Really found that Cardinals offense found their groove. I have some Cardinal stats. I'm using Marvin Harrison Jr. as a way to talk about some Cardinal stats real quick.
Go for it.
They're averaging over 7 yards of play out of 3 tight end looks, out 13 personnel. 23 of those plays.
Sicko ball.
Both of Marvin Harrison Jr.'s touchdowns were out of 13 personnel with 3 tight ends on the field, where he's the lone receiver, which is something we kind of envisioned this offseason. The rest of the league has 1 touchdown out of 13 personnel. The Cardinals have 3. And I think we're going to see more and more of it as it's gone away. They're using a bunch of 12 personnel, real 12 personnel with their 3 guys and with 2 tight ends. And run game looks awesome. And Marvin Harrison Jr. really does look like it's just like a bigger Devontae Smith. Like he's just so smooth. And it's just, it's hard to press him. He's strong. He doesn't care about guys like trying to get physical with them. He'll just shove them off. Like, yeah, it's Cardinals offense found their groove. Marvin Harrison Jr. found his groove, which is pretty obvious just looking at stats.
Yeah, Kyler Murray threw deep on 9.7 of his attempts in week 1, went 0 for 3, according to PFF. And then week 2, he threw deep on 23.8% of his throws, went 5 for 5 or 156 yards and 3 touchdowns. Truth will be somewhere in the middle throughout the course of the season, but I think that version of the Cardinals offense is more of what we'll see often. And honestly, his 2 catches that weren't touchdowns, which is wild to say, for Marvin Harrison Jr. were almost more impressive and I think indicative of who he is as a player, I think going forward, which is one, the first one was, again, boundary receiver, and Kyler just puts it up to him,
the little back shoulder one.
The back shoulder puts it up to him. That was number 1.
That's it.
All people hyper focused on this quote about him saying it's like not his job to get Marvin Harrison Jr. the ball, like, and that got aggregated everywhere. Like, what an eye roll. And clearly you already see the trust in who he knows who Marvin Harrison is on that one. And then also Harrison, I think, returning that trust on the scramble drill play where, Murray goes into creation mode and Harrison just immediately starts breaking downfield, finds a soft spot. Like, that was incredibly impressive to see. That's the savviness, the pro readiness of him as well. So yeah, I look, week one was, what did I say to you last week? We're definitely going to always look back on, remember when people worried about Marvin Harrison Jr.'s 1 catch for 4 yards? I feel like 2 seconds into that game on Sunday, I felt that was going to be the case.